nod, then asked, "So, are you excited about the gym Elliot's going to open with us?" Startled by the seemingly out-of-the-blue question, Karen spilled the entire box of sea salt she was holding into the soup. "My husband's opening a gym? Here in Serenity?" Obviously taken aback by her puzzled reaction, Eric winced. "I take it he hasn't told you?" "No, he hasn't said a word," she responded. Unfortunately, it was increasingly typical that when it came to the important things in their marriage, the things they should be deciding jointly, she and Elliott didn't have a lot of discussions. He made the decisions, then told her about them later, or, as in this case, didn't bother informing her at all. After dumping the now inedible batch of soup out, Karen started over, then spent the next hour stewing over this latest example of Elliott's careless disregard for her feelings. Each time he did something like this, it hurt her, chipping away at her faith that their marriage was as solid as she'd once believed it to be, that he was a man who'd never betray her as her first husband had. Elliott was the man who'd pursued her with charm and wit and determination. It was his sensitivity to her feelings that had ultimately won her over and convinced her that taking another chance on love wouldn't be the second biggest mistake of her life. She drew in a deep breath and fought for calm, doing her best to come up with a reasonable explanation for Elliott's silence about a decision that could change their lives. It was true that he did have a habit of trying to protect her, of not wanting her to worry, especially about money. Maybe that was why he'd kept this news from her. He had to know she'd react negatively, especially right now. They were, after all, planning to add a baby to their family. Now that her 2 children from that previous disaster of a marriage, Mac and Daisy, were both settled in school and on an even keel after the many upheavals in their young lives. The timing finally seemed right. But between Elliott's fluctuating income as a personal trainer at the corner spa and her barely above minimum wage pay here at the restaurant, adding to their family had taken careful consideration. She'd wanted never again to be in the same financial mess she'd been in when she and Elliott had first met. He knew that. So where on earth was the money to come from to invest in this new venture of his? There was no savings for a new business. Unless, she thought, he intended to borrow it from their baby fund. The possibility sent a chill down her spine. And then there was the whole issue of loyalty. Maddie Maddox, who ran the spa, Karen's boss Dana Sue Sullivan, and Eric's wife Helen Decatur Whitney owned the corner spa and had made Elliott an integral part of the team there. They'd also gone way above and beyond for Karen when she'd been a struggling single mom. Helen had even taken in Karen's kids for a while. How could Elliott consider just walking out on them? What kind of man would do that? Not the kind she'd thought she'd married, that was for sure. Though she'd started out trying to rationalize Elliott's decision to keep her in the dark, apparently the strategy hadn't worked. She was stirring the fresh pot of soup so vigorously, Dana Sue approached with a worried frown. "If you're not careful, you're going to puree that soup," Dana Sue said quietly. "Not that it wouldn't be delicious that way, but I'm assuming it wasn't part of your plan." "Plan?" Karen retorted, anger creeping right back into her voice, despite her best intention to give Elliott a chance to explain what had been going on behind her back. Who plans anything anymore? Or sticks to the plan if they do have one? No one I know. Or if they do, they don't bother to discuss these big plans with their partner. Dana Sue cast a confused look toward Eric. "What am I missing?" "I mentioned the gym," Eric explained, his expression guilt-ridden. "Apparently, Elliott hadn't told her anything about it." When Dana Sue merely nodded in understanding, Karen stared at her in dismay. "You knew too? You knew about the gym?"